What is going on, guys? Welcome back to this video. Welcome back to another video. Thank you guys for listening and tuning in to another one. This is gonna be good. This is gonna be good. I got some fresh stuff ready to download into your spirit. As I was just thinking and meditating this morning, got some things that just had me kind of reconsider some things, rather. Things I kind of already know, but it just seen it from a different perspective, good perspective. And the thing is, we got to realize is we're always going to be, no matter what, in this world, Jesus says, in this world, we're going to face tribulation. There's going to be things, and it's not so much, most time it's not things out there as much as it is things in here. And sometimes it is things out there, but it's usually because there's something we're communicating to ourselves about the thing that is out there. Men's heart failed them for fear about looking on things of the earth, looking onto the things of the earth. I don't want your heart to fail you, sons and daughters. I don't want your heart to fail you. Just keep looking. If you want to live, look and live. What did they do in the old covenant? They put a snake on the pole, and it was a replica of their sins and the stuff they did. So when they looked at the snake, they were healed. They were delivered. Because, the snake was a representative of Christ. Of what Christ already did, or what Christ was going to do in the new covenant, is just a symbolic measure. But likewise, as we're in the new covenant, we have the identity of Christ. So we have the opportunity to, when things happen, when things don't go in our favor, or when we think things aren't going in our favor, we have the opportunity to realign our thinking with what Christ has already done. So all we have to do is just look and live. Look and live. It's that simple. Look and live. And I can't tell you how many times that word has saved my life when I've been going through something. And it usually was something like internally, like I was dealing with some anxiety or something. But, and yes, we all deal with things, but it was something in the moment that God needed to give me a word at that specific time. And I can't tell you how many times He's done that. Literally, has brought me through just from a word. Specifically that word, look and live. And I knew, usually when He tells me that, it's something to come. It's something that I'm going to go through in the future. Okay, look and live. Look and live. You can either look and live, or you can look and die. It's that simple. You can either study your circumstance and, woe is me, and feel bad about yourself, or you can climb yourself out of that pit by looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of your faith. Actually, it's His faith, but it's His faith in you. So it's like joint faith. It's like His faith and it's your faith. So it's one faith that comes together. So you look unto Him, and so it empowers you to be able to climb out of that pit, to be able to get out of that low place that you're thinking from. There's no actual pit. We don't fall down the totem pole in the spirit. We're always seated in heavenly places. It's just where we're seeing ourselves in our thinking. It's how we see ourselves is very important. It doesn't matter. It matters. God's already given the verdict. He's already given the judge of who you are. You are righteous. You are right and right standing with God. But if you don't ever see yourself that way, or if you don't ever call it that way, if by yourself, what are you saying to yourself while you're with yourself? What are you saying to yourself? What are you communicating? What's your internal dialogue like? And I'm probably going to make another video about that, because that's very important, what your internal dialogue is like. And usually it's a reflection of what you've been feeding on, what you've been listening to, the things that you've been giving attention to, what you've been looking at. We look and behold. Whatever we look, it unfolds before us. So what have you been giving your attention to? Internal dialogue. Just going deep down inside and realizing, like, okay, this isn't who I am. This isn't who I want to be. So what do I do? So sometimes we have to start from the base level. We have to go back and figure out, like, okay, why readjust, and why am I feeling this way? We'll get to the root of the cause, get to the root of the issue. If you have anxiety, if you're ever dealing with anxiety, excuse me, find out, like, don't just get a cover up for it. Like, it's easy to just cope with things and just, because it feels good. And coping isn't always used, most time people think of drugs or something, like, oh, I'm coping with drugs. Like, that's just the extreme version. But there's many ways people cope. People can watch TV. It's just what you distract yourself with. What are you distracting yourself with to help you with your internal dialogue? The internal dialogue didn't go away. It's just distracting you from it. So what are you using to cope with? Are you using food? Are you using TV? Are you using your phone? Your phone can be a huge distraction. And all that does, it covers it up for a little while, and then, like, once you go a while without having that again, then you start feeling that again, and then you start feeling it again, and you start feeling it again. And it's like, well, the feeling came from, a lot of times we don't catch where the feeling come from because there's thoughts related to the feeling. But we're so familiar with the thoughts, that's why they're called familiar spirits. We're so familiar with those thoughts that them thoughts has then literally become our friends. And we literally have to detach from them. The Lord has to show us and be like, okay, detach yourself from those thoughts, because those aren't of me. Apart from me, you work works of iniquity. Depart from me. Those thoughts, those ways, depart from me. Let them things depart from you. And a lot of times it's a struggle because we're so familiar with those familiar thought patterns, and it literally has crippled us. It's crippled us. It makes you feel comfortable for a little while, but literally it's crippled your success. It's crippled your way of thinking, your Christ-like God-minded self. It's crippled that potential that is inside of you. And so just remember that anytime you feel oppressed, depressed, pressured, some pressure is good. There's good pressure and there's bad pressure. But if you feel pressure into doing something to get something from God, that's usually probably not God. Okay? 9 times out of 10. It's probably not. Matter of fact, probably 10 times out of 10. It's never God, okay? He will never pressure you to do something to get something from him. He will empower you, but he's not going to pressure you. There's a difference. It's just the way you're internalizing it. It may not be a bad thing, the thing you think you need to do. That may not be a bad thing to do, but it's where you're doing it from. How are you doing it? How are you carrying yourself? The way you present yourself, the way you carry yourself matters. But that all is a reflection on how you're thinking about yourself. We'll never carry ourselves greater than the level we're thinking about ourselves at. As long as we're thinking that we're stinking, and we're thinking that we're a sinner, or we're thinking that we missed the mark, we can't expect to carry ourselves like sons and daughters of God, because we're thinking in those low dimensions. But the more we get up hither, the more we think higher in that heavenly dimension, and the more that becomes a norm, it literally just becomes your norm. It literally becomes like your normal reality. Like, this is just the way I think. So you adopt that mentality now. It just becomes who you are. It is already who you are, but it literally becomes the way you think now. So once you adopt that mentality, then it's so much harder for those outside voices to get in. Now, I'm not saying you won't be tempted with it. Temptation is not going to go away. You are always on this earth. You're always going to be tempted. You're always going to, be faced with things. But the real empowerment is when you can actually go through it. Just persevere and push through it. Like, I'm going to give you an example. I was at the gym. I've been having had been having these little panic attacks at the gym. And I couldn't really figure out why I was going, these things were happening. Like, why it kept happening over and over and over. And then, of course, I reasoned with it, and I thought, well, maybe it's because I've been doing this, or because I've been thinking this way, but it was really just a test. And I'm not saying those things I didn't need to do away with. Obviously, yes, I did, and the Lord dealt with me on that. But here's the thing. Regardless if you do away with those things or not, the thoughts related to that is still going to come back to you. It's still going to try to see if you are mature. It's going to test you. It's going to see if you are that pure gold God says you are. If you really believe that. If you really think that. And it's going to come back. And so this time, what I did was, I saw it before it formed into this big, massive panic attack. I saw it coming. I caught it on the tail end of it. And I was like, oh no, we're not going to go there today. We're not going there. And I was like, instead of trying to say I rebuke you and try to just, make a big scene in the gym, I literally just was like, no, I'm going to hold my posture. I'm not going to look at that thing. I know I'm not oblivious to it. I don't realize, I'm not saying it's not there, it doesn't exist, but I'm not going to stare at it. I'm going to keep going forward in what I'm doing. I'm going to keep, I may have to rest for a minute. I may have to take a longer rest. That's fine. But God said, just stand. If you don't grow weary in your well-doing, if you don't, you won't faint. If you will reap if you don't faint. If you don't grow weary in your well-doing, you will reap. If you don't faint, if you faint not, you will reap. And that's what I just kept hearing in my spirit. Just don't grow weary in your well-doing. Just keep proceeding. Proceed to the route. Just keep proceeding. What happens if you get off track on GPS? When you're driving down the road and all of a sudden you make a wrong turn and it just says proceed to the route. I'm literally recalculating. It doesn't mean that you're not going to go to your destination. It just means that you might get off course a little bit and now it's going to reroute you. It may take a little longer to get where you're going. Sure, you have to stop and rest for a minute, readjust, get some water, take a break for a minute, get some breath back. But you're not going to stop. We're not going to stop. We're not going to back up. We're not going to make concessions, okay? We're going to press through and get to the other side of this mountain, or what so seems to be a mountain. It's not a mountain in God's eyes, but we're going to get through it. And so as I just kept pushing through, I just kept going through and just listening to the voice of my Father and just, obeying, even if it seemed uncomfortable, because it's not going to always seem comfortable. Obeying His voice isn't, especially when you're in the midst of adversity and things are coming against you, it's going to seem like, oh man, it almost seems as like it's the opposite of what I should be doing. It feels so uncomfortable. But I knew inside, I knew internally, I was doing the right thing. There was nothing I was doing that I was doing wrong. So if I just kept doing it long enough, I would see my victory. I would see my victory. The fact is, I've already won. The fact is, we've already won with Christ. But if we just keep pushing through whatever adversity we're facing, we will see our victory. And when you see your victory, you will overcome. You will because we are overcomers. That's just who we are. But that was an epiphany for me this week, because I really just, I kept, facing that. And every time I would go, I would face the same thing, I would just you know what, I'm just going to stop for the day. I'm not going to push any further. And you know what? I'd feel miserable the rest of the day. I wouldn't feel miserable because of the panic attack. I would just feel miserable because I let that thing try to defeat me. I let it win. I didn't, push through. I didn't persevere through. And to me, if I don't see my victory, if I don't see my win, it's though I lost. Even if I didn't lose, it's like, if I didn't see my victory, then if I didn't see the manifestation of it, to me, that's just like losing. At least that's just how I feel. It's just the same as losing. So I was like, no, I'm going to see this thing. God says I'm an overcomer, and I'm going to overcome. I'm going to overcome this thing. This thing's not going to overcome me. I'm going to overcome it. So I encourage you today, whatever you're facing, whatever maybe you've dealt with anxiety, or maybe you've dealt with other things that are just mind-boggling you. Just keep persevering through it. You will see your victory. You will get through this. You will reap if you faint not. You will not. Don't grow weary in your well-doing. You will reap. I promise you, you will reap. Just keep pushing through. It may be frightening. It may be like something you've never done before. Maybe it's seeking a new job opportunity. Maybe it's I don't know. Maybe go talk to that friend you've been afraid to talk to. But make sure you get your insight and your wisdom from the Holy Spirit. You're not just thinking out of your head, and it's not just things you're telling yourself in your head. Make sure it is the Holy Ghost. But if you have been walking with the Holy Ghost and you've been obeying His instructions, the download just becomes simple. It just becomes so easy to yield to, because, like, okay, it just made no sense for me to give up when I was at the gym. Like, it literally made no sense. Like, why would I throw in the towel now? I'm like 3 or 4 exercises in. I've been working, sweating, and grinding. And I'm in this thing, you know what I'm saying? It's not like I just started working out and like, oh my God, like I'm having a panic attack. No, I was deep in this thing. I'm like literally 1 or 2 exercises away from finishing. Like, I can see if you just started. But we were already like close to the finish line. I'm not throwing in the towel now. Heck no. I'm going to win this thing. I'm going to win this race. And so that's just got to be our mentality, guys. We just got to have the mentality, the thing like, hey, we're going to win this thing. Because we know what? We've already won. The reality is we've already won. But we just got to keep having that winning spirit, that spirit that says, I'm not going to give in. I'm not going to back out. I'm going to keep pressing through until I see my victory. That's all I have for you guys today. I love you. Appreciate your support. Until next time, see you in the next video. Peace.